Chairman, we're live.
Thank you very much. Good morning and welcome everybody to this meeting of the Local Government Pension Scheme Pension Board. I'm Mike Collier, I'm the chair of the board. A few announcements just before we start. The council will be holding this meeting electronically. Members of the public may also attend the meeting in an electronic capacity, and there is a link on the council's website for them to do so. Members of the board are asked to keep their microphones switched off until called to speak, and to switch their microphones off once they have finished speaking. Cameras may be left on through the meeting if members wish, but if you do experience connection or other technical issues, it may help to switch off your camera. Cameras should be switched on if and when you are speaking in the meeting. To indicate a wish to speak, members should use the raise hand function, and use of the meeting chat function is exclusively used for voting. At the end of the debate of each item of business, there will be a vote. Members should vote using the meeting chat function by indicating for, against or abstain, and I will declare the result after each vote. Breaks of at least 15 minutes will be held every 2 hours and will be taken after a speaker in the debate has finished speaking. If we are voting, the vote will be concluded before the break is taken. Other breaks will be incorporated as appropriate. I also have an announcement regarding the order of business. It is in the gift of the chairman to vary the order of the items on the agenda for this meeting to ensure due diligence by the board in regard to the items to be discussed as part 2 business. I'll be changing the order of the agenda so that the part 2 business is discussed first after the agreement of the part 1 minutes. I have notification of changes in membership that Tracy Doyle has resigned from the board. Apologies today have been received from Terry Hone and James Hurley. For the benefit of any viewers watching, I'd like to ask the board to introduce themselves, including their position on the board. I'll start in the order I've got it down here, which is Jolyon.
Morning, I'm Jolyon Adam. I'm the employer rep for the Schools and Academies pool.
Thank you. Sarah.
Hello, my name is Sarah Ansell. I'm an employer representative and at the University of Hertfordshire.
Okay. James.
He hasn't joined yet.
Oh, right, okay. Apologise. Adam.
Hello, I'm Adam Mitchell, County Councillor in Stevenage and Vice Chairman.
Then employer standing subs, Brian.
Good morning, everybody. Brian Kane here, employer sub from Watford Council.
Thank you. And Rob.
Yeah, Rob McCarthy, good morning to you all. I'm a standing substitute employer representative and I'm chairman of the Hertfordshire Association of Parish and Town Councils.
Okay, thank you. And member reps, Jack.
Hello, good morning. Jack Byford, a member representative and current Hertfordshire County Council employee.
Thank you. Gail.
Good morning, I'm Gail Johnson. I'm a retired accountant. I'm a pensioner member of the scheme.
Thank you. Tim.
Good morning, everybody. Tim Perkins, member representative, retired, past chief officer and clerk of Abbots Laney Parish Council.
Thank you. And Sharon.
Hi, I'm Sharon. I'm a substitute member rep as a deferred member. I'm a former employee of the University of Hertfordshire.
Right, thank you. And officers, I'll get you to introduce yourselves as you speak to items. Declarations of interest. Do any members have any financial or pecuniary interest relating to specific matters on the agenda? Please declare now if you have. I'm not seeing any indications, so I'll take that as no. Right, minutes of the part 1 agenda from last time. Can I ask if anyone has any questions or comments on the minutes of the last meeting? Again, I'm not seeing any, so therefore can I ask that if you are Happy to approve the minutes as circulated, you indicate in the chat function. Whilst people are doing that, Patrick, there is an item under 1.2 of the minutes asking for something to be circulated.
Yes, I can confirm that's circulated. The response, response in to the question around the foreign exchange derivatives.
Indeed. Okay, thank you. Okay, that has been agreed. Therefore, I move that we enter closed session to consider exempt business, and when that ends, the live stream will recommence and we will return to consider the part 1 agenda.
Nice stream.
Okay, thank you very much for that. We are now live again. So we go to item 2 on the part 1 agenda, which is the, excuse me, the investment strategy review. This is another Patrick and Sandy double act. So over to you, Patrick.
Thank you, Chairman. So the strategy is similar to the funding strategy statement that we presented to you recently. The investment strategy, that they're both reviewed every 3 years. That's not to say that in respect of the investment strategy, we just leave it for 3 years on the shelf and take it down and dust it off and look at it then. We're continuously looking at the strategic asset allocations within the fund, and we'll tweak them and make certain movements dependent on manager performance and evolving market conditions. So you will have received at your last board meeting an executive summary of some of the initial work that the working group has done on the investment strategy. We, as officers and consultants and the working group, are of the view that we don't need to do any serious surgery. The funding evaluation report you received earlier is telling us that. However, to maintain that 106% funding level is quite hard, because it's easier to sort of, when you're in a underfunded position, to work with growth assets and make those strategic asset allocations. It's probably harder to defend an improved funding position. And so we will be doing some work looking at a deeper dive into the equity portfolio, making some changes there. Sandy alluded to one of those potential changes is the UK equity portfolio. We'll be looking at our bond composition. We have got we've got index-linked gilts, we've got 2 bond managers, RLAM and Blue Bay, but we may want to remove or slightly reduce that allocation to bonds and move some of that allocation to real assets, which Sandy will talk about when I pass over to him. The paper sets out at a high level what the review will entail. The working group will do a bit of this work. At times, we will invite the broader committee and board into the conversation where there is particular learning that we need to share with the broader group. However, the main thrust of the investment strategy review is to look at 3 areas: the asset allocation, which is what I've just been talking about, the risk management policy, which Sandy talked about earlier, the views on equity protection, whether we want to continue to maintain that full coverage across the equity portfolio or reduce it slightly, and the policy on ESG, responsible investment, which we've done quite a bit of work on, and the draft version of that is out now for consultation with the employer group. So one of those 3 is done already. The risk management policy in respect of equity protection will be something we'll do after the asset allocation review. The 2.5 sets out in a bit more detail the detail around some of the objectives we'll be looking at, which I've just talked to briefly. But again, looking at real asset opportunities, looking at some of the assets that we might need to put in place to address our transition journey to decarbonisation and achieving the targets that we set out in our RI policy. We anticipate the review will take up to 12 to 16 months. There's an appendix in the paper, Appendix C, which sets out at very high level some of the topic areas that will be reviewed by the working group, and the conclusion of that work that they undertake will be recommendations that will flow to the committee and come back to this board for review. And there's a sort of high level timetable there of when we expect to do that work and when those recommendations will come back to committee. That's all I was going to say before handing over to Sandy. Happy to take questions after Sandy's presentation.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that, Patrick. Sandy, over to you, sir.
Thanks, Patrick. So as Patrick's sort of alluded to, the first step on thinking about the strategy was the overall strategic asset allocation. We obviously spoke to board about that last time, and as Patrick mentioned, with the improvement in the funding level, the strategy has been working, so we don't really see any need for major change in that regard. And so what Appendix C on page 14 of the pack, this is sort of almost the work plan for the working group, and we've tried to order it with what we think is the most important. So work with that high level top stuff and then go down through what's most important. So the first thing on the agenda is sort of analytics for climate transition. So in the RI policy, there is a target for net zero by 2050 or sooner. And so this is now going, right, well, we know where we are, we know where we're going to get to. How can we plot a journey to get to that? And that will be obviously across all the fund's assets. That's why it's one of the first pieces of work, because that kind of sets the journey and agenda for all the other pieces, because we need to make sure we set a decarbonisation journey. Every other underlying piece, whether it be equities, real assets or bonds, can then feed up and link into that. So we're seeing that holistic management piece. After that sort of decarbonisation journey, which is going to have a whole of fund type analysis, we'll then go into what the biggest parts are. And obviously the equity portfolio is the biggest part. So I think it's right just to review that structure, that composition, look what's in access, review what active managers or any star biases we might be missing and needing, thinking about that quality that we touched earlier, how much we got in the UK, all those sort of things to make sure we've got a nice balanced rounded portfolio, because ultimately that's going to drive a lot of the returns over the long term. So getting that right is really quite important. Linked to that is sort of passive equities. So I'm sure some of the board will be aware that within the UBS mandate, there's a climate aware fund. This fund is trying to track market indices, so giving you passive performance, but tilting that portfolio to have more responsible investment, ESG, carbon characteristics, so tilting towards those more responsible investment companies, whilst within the refrain of they're trying to match market returns. There's been quite a lot of development in terms of the options access since we first allocated to that climate aware, so it seems like an appropriate time to go back and go, now we've set our transition pathway, what are the options on access, what best fits our needs? So that's certainly that'll be an interesting piece of work. And then the rest sort of then flows down. So we've got private equity. We put that on fairly high on the agenda because the fund needs to continue to commit to private equity, because these are closed-ended funds. It's quite mature. The private equity fund invested now, so it's paying out a lot of cash rather than, and so that would then fall in terms of total asset value away from our strategic asset allocation. So we're looking to make sure we can top that up to maintain that. Linked in with access of progress, clearly we would like to allocate private equity within the pool, but if it's going to be too far away, we might have to do it outside the pool again one more time before the pool options are available. To be clear, we'll probably just be allocating to the same managers we already have, which other access members also allocate to, so there's still the benefit of pooling there. And that's really what the list is trying to do. Take on the high level, just work through, as Patrick said, it'll be a 12 to 18 month sort of plan in terms of what the working group will be working on, bringing back to committee for decisions. And clearly, once we've got the structure and plan in place, if things happen, we can move things up and down that agenda as if required, but we've set it out as we see right now what's going to be the priority, what are the biggest ticket items, so to speak, first, before moving down that list.
Okay, right. Any questions or comments to either Patrick or Sandy? No? I think then, in that case, the recommendation is that we note and comment on the draft investment statement strategy for circulation and consultation with employers of the Hertfordshire Pension Fund. Okay, that has been duly noted, which moves us on to item 3, which is the fund policies review. Anne, I believe you're presenting this one.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and good morning all. This is the Pension Fund Policies Review. The administration strategy has been revised to reflect the changes made to the LPPA's administration system and to inform employers of all administrative charges that the fund can levy against scheme employers. There will be further changes to the strategy following the implementation of the single code of practice and once the LPPA develops reporting mechanisms to inform the fund of employees who are late in submitting forms and monthly returns. The scheme pays policy has been developed to support the administering authority's discretionary policy, whereby the fund can allow part of a member's annual tax charge to be paid by the fund in exchange for a reduction in their pension benefits. If a member's annual tax charge exceeds £2,000, they have a right to ask the pension fund to pay this tax charge on their behalf to HMRC in exchange for a reduction of benefits. This is known as mandatory scheme pays. Where a member's annual allowance charge in the year does not meet the criteria for mandatory scheme pays, the fund's discretion is that they will discharge the tax liability to reduce the pension members' benefits by the corresponding amount, which is known as voluntary scheme pays. The fund are working with external third parties to review our communication strategy, and extensive work is still being performed on the Pension Fund website to ensure that it's fit for purpose. Further work is also being performed on the communications policy. These policies will be presented together at a later meeting. Thank you, and I welcome your questions.
Okay, any questions or comments? Gail?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you very much. And on the administration strategy, I just wondered how much work had to be done as a result of changes arising from the new system, because I'm assuming that you'll have to do a lot more work once the single code of practice comes out as well. So have you had to do a lot of work at this stage?
Yes, there was a considerable amount of work that the team have done on the administration strategy to reflect the changes to the administration system. But we will be prepared for the single code of practice as it comes. We've performed a gap analysis with Hymans Robertson, who have preempted the changes that will be coming through as a result of the single code of practice. And we have tried to incorporate those preempted changes in the current administration strategy, which should hopefully reduce the amount of the workload that will come as a result of the regulations passing.
Yes, okay, thanks. You've answered the question, because we're not hopefully having to do all the same work twice. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? No. In that case, thank you for that, Anne. The recommendation is the Pension Board agrees to the amendments to the administration strategy. Actually, sorry, a bit of a pedant. I'm not sure, do we have the power to agree? Should we not note the amendments to the administration strategy and the presented data? I'm sorry to put you on the spot like this, Teresa. It's just I'm not sure we have power to agree or disagree.
That is correct, but you could endorse.
Thank you. Okay, so how about that? We endorse the amendments to the administration strategy and note the changes to the policies. Okay. Sorry, I should have picked that up before. So on that basis, could we go to the voting, please?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. That's been noted and endorsed. which moves us on to item 4, which is the Q2 performance report. Taryn, I believe you're presenting this.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair. So I'm providing the update on this in John Crowhurst's absence. So I'll take you through some points that I discussed with him earlier this week. So overall performance for Q2 was 94.6%. Just for context, in Q1 it's 91.6%, and in Q3 it's tracking at around 90%. I'll come back to reason why that is later on. Performance on retirements in Q2 was 97.5%, refunds 86.4%, and deaths 87%. The reasons we've called those out in particular is because SLAs around other processes have been relaxed due to Project PACE. LPPA commented that the deaths are below target, and this is due to the capacity to check the cases. So most cases are being processed on time, but then being held up due to not having the capacity at the appropriate level with the required knowledge to check those cases. LPPA fully expect to be working with within SLA from Q1 next year. The help desk, there was spiking calls following the annual benefit statement release in August, but they managed to maintain the 4-minute average wait time. Call wait time has been maintained following the during Q3, and that's following more releases of the new pensions administration system for other clients. So just to give you an update on that, we've got October at around 3 minutes 58 seconds, and November is averaging at around 4 minutes 51 seconds. Pension point registrations, there was a 9% increase in active registrations and a 5% increase in deferred registrations, which would be expected with the release of the annual benefit statements, and pensioners' registrations increased by 7%. Active ABSs, initially 88% were released by the statutory date at 31st of August. There has been a secondary run which went on the 30th of November, and now 95% of those statements have been released. Any remaining statements will be released as the queries on those records are resolved. So going back to Project PACE, the remaining clients have now all gone live on UPM. Lancashire County Pension Fund went live on the 28th of October, Brent, Newham and Havering on the 11th of November, and their remaining blue light clients and Cumbria Pension Fund went live on the 5th of December. An update on that is that lessons learned for phase 1 do not appear to be issues for phase 2 releases. So there has been less hypercare, no issues with registrations for pensions point. The images have been immediately available in the system, and the wait times for email and phone answering telephones have remained steady. Monthly returns have been launched for Lancashire. Hertfordshire are expected to go live in May with April data. The reason Lancashire went first was because they were already using monthly returns. So I believe that has been a successful launch, excuse me, and a lot of the issues will be ironed out before we go live next year. It's generally gone well. There have been some spikes in work as a result of the blackout, because as each client is moved on to UPM, the whole system is taken down for that period, and so there's been a few 1 or 2 days over the last few months where the system's been unavailable, which then creates a bit of a backlog in work, but they're working through that, and the priority for doing that is the oldest first. And SLAs have been relaxed for November, December and January to help manage that transition. So the SLA for payment cases is 90% and it's 70% for anything else. as a general business update, and I mentioned this earlier, Joe Derbyshire outlined plans with you at the last meeting. So LPPA's business plan went to board for approval on the 7th of December and it was subsequently approved. So we are expecting a summary to come out to us within the next few months. With immediate effect, the LPPA new executive leadership team has been implemented to drive the business through its next phase of evolution. And this was communicated to all clients on the 25th of November. LPPA have also started an engagement programme with their third party to review their current operating model, and they have recruited 2 learning and development managers to upskill their current staff. So that's it.
Okay, any questions or comments? Bearing in mind that I'm sure Taryn will do her best to answer them, but normally we would expect John or a senior member of LPPA to be here. Adam, did you have a question? I'm putting on the spot.
Only that
but you've only gone visible.
Yeah, just that it's a bit strange that they're not here to talk for themselves, really. You know, and that I hope doesn't suggest there's some sort of key person risk. I think we mentioned this in the briefing, didn't we, Mike? And if one person couldn't be here, there should be somebody who they could send, in their stead as a one-off. And perhaps if they've got a new sort of exec group coming in, then maybe they will want to introduce themselves and to show faces to names and things. And I find it a bit odd. That's all.
Yeah.
It's not a question, it's just a comment.
Yeah. I too, as you know, in the briefing, expressed my concern that there was nobody present. One thing that has always troubled me about the performance standard, where they're not meeting it, is I don't get a feel for, maybe I'm just not reading the tables properly, how bad the worst case is. And I would have thought it ought to be possible, if we take deaths, for example, and incidentally, perhaps I should comment that, Tammy, you said deaths were below target. I think we should say that the performance of responding to unfortunate cases where members die is below target. We're saying 87% was responded to within 5 working days. I wonder whether it would be possible to have a measure of, well, what was the 95% target? So how many days was it by the time they reached the 95% level? I'm not sure if I'm making myself clear, but it might be it was 5.5 days. It might be it was 50 days. We don't get that information from this. So I'd like if officers would take that back and maybe discuss that with LPP. I don't want to have a whole new ream of PIs, but maybe just an extra number on there, which could say deaths 87% within 5 days. The target of 95% was 7 days, or something along those lines.
Yes, I can take that away.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Right, well, I would like to add another resolution, which is that the board notes with concern the absence of a senior LPP member of staff at its meeting and urges LPP to ensure suitable attendance at all future meetings. So we'll take, first of all, the 2.1 that we note and comment on the performance, and then I'll repeat that second one for you in a moment. So the first of all is that we note and comment on the content of the report. Okay, that's noted and commented on. So 2.2 reads, the board notes with concern the absence of a senior LPP member of staff at its meeting and urges LPP to ensure suitable attendance at all future meetings. And I believe this is one we can actually agree or not, as that's within our power. So you want to... Okay, that has been agreed. It's actually 5 to 12. The convention is that we break for 15 minutes every 2 hours. So we still have 2 items to go, and I think there'd be a great tendency just to rush them through if I try to push them through in that 5 minutes. So could I suggest that we break now and reconvene at 12:10? Okay, and if I suggest people turn their cameras off now and then turn them back on again when they're ready to recommence the meeting. So see you shortly.
Thank you, Chairman.
No, I have to, but I suppose it matters.
Okay, the live stream has resumed, so we will continue with the meeting at item 5, which is employer risk and governance. And Anne, this is you, I believe.
Thank you, Chair. This is the Employer Risk and Governance Report for the quarter July to September 2022. This report provides the Pension Board with further detail into the pension employer risk function of the fund and overall fund performance, which includes audit reviews and our pension administrators' performance. In section 4.1, we have analysed scheme employers by risk categories. Red risk-rated employers decreased by 5 in the quarter as a result of the signature of 4 admission agreements, as outlined in Table 5 and Appendix B, the cessation of an employer without indemnity, 3 scheme employers becoming up to date with their employer contributions, and 3 new employers joining the category of the outstanding deficits. The number of employers being monitored under each risk category is outlined in Appendix A. Table 3 provides a breakdown of the 28 scheme employers in the red risk category. This quarter, we have 5 employers with repayment plans for historic deficits agreed in principle. The pension fund's legal team are in the midst of preparing legal repayment plans in line with the new regulations regarding debt spreading arrangements. 3 new employers have joined this category, and fund officers are in discussions with them to recover their deficit. The number of outstanding admission agreements are highlighted in Table 5, which has reduced by 4 this quarter. 3 employers in the over a year category has notified the fund of a 2p transfer over a year of their contract had already elapsed, which automatically put them in this category. However, in line with the report, 4 out of 5 of these employers have agreed to their admission agreements in principle, and we expect to see a further reduction in the over a year category next quarter. The governance update in Appendix C highlights the details in the external audit, and details of late payers and forms are outlined in Appendix D. Thank you, and I welcome your questions.
Okay, any questions? Yes, Gail.
Thank you, Chair. It's one comment and one question. The comment is it's really good to see the outstanding admission agreements number coming down. That's really making progress there. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
The question is on the status of the audit. Perhaps it's a question for Rob. There was 2 points on the audit. One was the completion of data testing by Ernst & Young. And the other is on the council's own accounts, the infrastructure outstanding issue. And I just wondered if we could have an update on where we are with those.
Thank you, Gail. Rob? Phil, thank you.
No, sorry, don't mind. I was just going to say on the LPPA item, that's been fully concluded. EY have already released one of the IS19 letters to Decorum, as they have requested it so far. None of the other audits for the district councils have been requested letters as of yet, but they will be signed off once they are requested. On the infrastructure item, there is some legislation hopefully going through central government for statutory override, which hopefully will be some point this month, if not January. And we're hoping to have the HEC item concluded later in the new year. Just to update, at the audit committee recently on the 30th of November, EY did state that as long as no other issues come out from the HEC side and the pension fund, the last 2 items, the annual report and the going concern statement are complete, we should have an unqualified opinion in the new year.
Thanks very much. So we're obviously not alone with this particular issue. No. Thank you.
Just on that one, there's something out in Public Finance today. Only 12% of councils made the 30th of November deadline, up 3% from last year, but that's 2 months later. Last year was September, this year is November. So obviously a long delay still going on.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? I can perhaps contribute one of my own, which is a question regarding table 3 on page 123 of the report, the breakdown of red risk. I'm concerned to note that the actuary is recalculating the cessation debt for one employer who challenged the cessation report they obtained in 2013. So the time delay in that is rather worrying. Do we have an idea of when that's likely to be resolved, or what's our target for resolution?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, they actually are in the midst of recalculating this cessation deficit. However, they have taken priority of the valuation. So it is quite an extensive amount of work. However, we expect it to be completed sometime early next year.
Right. And the other one is just over the page. It says one employer still does not have a payment arrangement in place. Will continue to engage. If a proposal has not been agreed, the fund will take legal action. Can I have a timescale around that as well, please?
We do not have a timescale at the moment. We are endeavouring to engage with this employer in order to get something in place. Right. It is something that we are doing at this present moment.
Yeah. Well, if I ask for an update then to our next meeting.
Yes, sure.
It hasn't been resolved. Indication of when we propose to move to legal action. I would add, perhaps I should have preceded this by, I too echo Gail's comments. It's really pleasing to see the progress that has been made on this. I wouldn't want my questions to detract from that, because a great deal of progress has been made on this, and that's very pleasing. Any other questions or comments? It would appear not. So the recommendation is that we comment on and note the content of the report. So if I ask you to respond in the usual way, please.
Thank you.
Okay, that has been noted and commented upon, which brings us to item 6, which is the Pension Fund Risk Register report. Rob, I believe this is you.
That's correct, Chairman. Thank you. So this is the risk register for the quarter July to September 2022. Having reviewed the risk during this period, officers felt that there'd been no movement in the risk analysis since the last quarter, April to June, and hence have kept all of the scoring as it was at the previous quarter. I just wanted to point out again that this risk register is also reviewed by our actuary Hymans and our investment consultant Mercer, just to give us some assurances about how we're presenting it and the data that we've got in. Again, they were quite happy for this period that there hadn't been any material changes, so we've kept it as it is. I wasn't going to say too much more on the report, but happy to take any questions from the report or the appendice.
Okay, any questions or comments? It would appear not. So therefore, can we vote on whether the Pension Board is asked to note and comment on the contents of the attached report? Okay, that has been noted there. So brings us on to dates of future meetings. Reminder that the next meeting on the 17th of March next year is in person at County Hall. Be lovely to meet up again after such a break. And the one after that on the 11th of July. I haven't been notified of any other Part 1 business, so just remains for me to thank you all for your attendance and to wish you all a Merry Christmas, and looking forward to seeing you next year. All the best.
Thank you,
Bye.
Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.